I was out.
A lot of people were sick.
Came over, Dick, God bless it. Dixie came over on New Year's.
I'm not giving you the,
New
don't get
Year's
something like
Eve afternoon to wrap gifts.
You're a Lincoln, but I'm not
Sorry.
getting
Busy chit-chatting there.
that. Might take 30 seconds or so.
a quick link. Oh, there it comes, got it.
A lot
Thanks.
of people.
Museum
Very
committee.
My kids, my Toronto kids.
I call to this meeting to order. I'd like confirmation of the agenda that the North Huron Museum Committee accept the agenda for January 20th, 2020 committee meeting as presented. Verna?
I'll second it.
Dave? All in favor? Carries. Declaration of pecuniary interests. None noted. Public comment. Seeing no one. Minutes of the previous meeting. That the North Huron Museum Committee hereby adopts the minutes of meeting held December 19th, 2019 as presented. Do I have a mover? Doug? Carrie? Verna? All in favor? Delegations, we have none. We're going to number 7 for reports. And I'm going to start off with Vicki.
Thank you, Chairman, Mr. Chairman. So on last Monday, I took a report forward to council regarding the work plan, and Doug presented on behalf of the committee to council. He did a great job at presenting the information and going through things. Council did have questions, which he was able to answer and things. So at this point, council has approved the work plan to move forward. Basically, they just indicated as part of the approval process that as the work plan timeline changes, that they be provided with an update and things. So if we need to change dates, as due dates or as when things are needed or whatever like that, that we provide them with an update so that they're aware of what the plan is and when to expect things. As part of this, I just wanted to, there seemed to be some different questions from council members about different things, but I just want to clarify with this group too about roles and responsibilities and what you're tasked with, and it just basically go over that it's the committee is responsible for developing a proposal for council to consider in making this decision. So you're trying to basically show council how it can be done, how it can be run successfully and things. So you're developing a proposal. That's what the outcome will be and things. But as part of that, because it relates back to the work plan, I want to clarify the roles of myself and the chairman as well, because we're listed on there, and as staff and as the chairperson, this proposal's coming from the community. It's not coming from us. So we can't be the ones developing it. We can be resources to get you information, but the work has to be done by the committee. So those things that have Paul and I listed on there will need to be undertaken by someone else. We'll be resources and provide the information, but it needs to be undertaken by someone else. Because this isn't a township-driven initiative or a staff-driven initiative, it's a community initiative. Any questions? Lou?
I can see my face. I'm not quite sure, Vicki, about any of this, in that we can put things out there, and I'm going to say that I want to give Brock all the credit in the world for doing that part. I didn't even know he was going ahead. But I'm saying, from my point of view, once I looked at what Brock had done and what he and I were going to do together, I'm saying we then don't really represent all of you until we bring it back to you to hear it and to go through it. So how does that break down, Vicki? Because I remember almost the second meeting, we were all going to go off and just do our wonderful thing, and then you said, no, you can't do that. And so just go through that one more time, because all of a sudden I realized last time when Doug had so generously laid out the draft, but then we thought there were things missing, and we then all just grabbed a little piece of it and took it away in our heads. Go through it one more time as to what kind of power we really do have as either individuals or small groups within this, and then representing this group, and then really representing North Huron.
Okay, I think I know what you're asking, Lou. So, what the committee can have a few small working groups. It cannot be quorum or make any decisions. It can do investigative work. The investigative work is then brought back here to this committee in the form of a report, presented to this committee for discussion, and then at that time the committee can say we approve it or we agree to it, we all agree to it, or they can say no, we need more information or more time, let's revisit it and things. But as these decisions are coming forward, they're going to form kind of the whole basis for which what you're proposing to council is how the museum would run if it were to move down there. Because the decision has not been made that the museum would move. You're putting together proposal and ideas to show council it can work down there and this is how it can work.
Okay, thank you very much for clarification.
Doug, go ahead.
Mr. Chair, I think the key was when we're at the first meeting when we're all gonna run off and do our things, the word was quorum. So if half of us went off to do something and we represented more than the majority of this committee, we could come over and kind of bowl the committee over. And that's the
Okay, we
the tender
probably
spot.
didn't.
We never really thought that through.
No.
But as long as we're in twos and threes and we're bringing it back here for all of us to vet, discuss, modify, tweak,
Okay.
and then approve as a whole, then we're okay.
Okay, thanks. No, I understand that, and I appreciate it just being said one more time so we know how we're operating. Okay.
Thanks.
So just further on that, so then there are a few things on the work plan that have my name and Paul's name attached to it that will have to be spearheaded or undertaken by one of the committee members. Again, we can be resources for information, on like operating costs and stuff like that, of what our experience has been with the building across the street or things like that. But we can't be the ones developing the information or developing an operational budget or plan or something like that. We're a resource.
Thank
Does that
you.
make sense?
Thanks.
Yep, okay.
Absolutely. So any other more questions to Vicky about anything at all? Go ahead, Doug.
Like, just Vicki, you had conversation with me concerning the storage of the existing artifacts fitting over there. So, just so that everybody knows that
Sure.
conversation, Vicki wasn't at the last meeting. At last meeting, I was standing there laying out how many feet of storage space and how many shelves we had. And I just want to kind of reconfirm for Vicki's sake that we felt there, with all that lineal footage of shelving, when we imagined it floor by floor, there would be more than enough space to store all the existing artifacts. We're all good there, just so you're aware then? So I didn't do a measurement piece by piece, that would be almost impossible, but it just, by the numbers, it just, like, there's just, we use that rollable shelving, that $75,000 of rollable shelving, I think we got space for more archives than what we have right now. And I think we discussed as a committee, and we found when we researched, when we went down to Lambeth Heritage Museum, that the lady there said, whatever you do, when you move, take your time, don't try to move the stuff and then figure it out. And so as we move stuff over, I'm not familiar with the details of all the archives that are there, but I know you've said there's extra copies of books and there's stuff that really shouldn't go over. Some of it doesn't need to be deaccessioned because it never was a museum artifact. But there may be stuff, like I remember seeing the arrowheads, the arrowheads at the bottom of stairs.
Yeah.
They might need to go back to First Nations.
Mhm.
They're really not part of, and that all falls in with once one of our work plan things is I forget what you call that, of what the museum is and isn't, right? There's one of our,
Provenance of it, I guess.
which,
Provenance.
The
Provenance.
provenance of it. It
Good.
has to fit the criteria.
right, so once we set the criteria of what the museum is, then that will help us define, okay, this shouldn't go over there, can we,
Oh,
Go ahead.
I'm just
No.
gonna,
Yep.
with regard to the arrowheads, this is something new that many museums are now writing into their governance programming, which is repatriation. And that's something brand new, and I know they don't even have it at Huron County Museum. They're in the process of writing and researching what they should, the protocols maybe. They may not want them, but at least you have to make the offer. So you take those with you to be honed appropriately later.
yeah,
That kind of thing. It's tricky.
Mhm.
And the rules are always changing slightly, right? That's, a museum is a living organism in many ways.
Mm.
It isn't historical, it's evolving. It is historical, but I mean, it's not, it has to be fluid.
Yeah.
And I had no idea, but that's, they've changed so much.
Well, and even Bill, I am lucky enough, I've just finished a lecture series on Indigenous history,
Mhm.
and the whole organization at one time organized for the history of our country, is in flux because there has never been enough representation by Indigenous people themselves on those committees, and that's turning over right now, which means policy is all turning over.
Mm.
And so we're going to, whoever, not we, I'm not including you,
No.
but we are going to have to be very savvy about a lot of these things, and I think council too. Like, it strikes me that they're going to have to decide pretty quickly, for my sense of it all, yes, no. Because then there's all kinds of organizational details, if it's yes, that there's not a lot of sense spending your whole life doing if it's not even going to happen. That's what worries me a bit.
So were there any more questions for Vicky about anything there?
Well, what are we going to do about where Vicky and Paul are named?
I just like to bring this forward. Could I still go and help Doug do the measuring and things like that? Would that be all right?
You could help him do the measuring, yes, but you can't be you and I cannot be the leaders on some of this. We're resources, he's using you as a physical
Yeah,
resource
Right, okay.
and things, so.
I know, can I say, the part that you and I are supposed to be doing, I have no idea even where to begin. So, picking your brain would be okay to do that,
Yes.
and then I go do it. That's,
Yes.
okay.
Yes.
But
Yes.
if I had to do
Yeah.
the research,
And, oh no, I'm here as a resource. But it can't be Paul and I are going to do a task for the committee. That's what it is that's not, this is a proposal from the committee to council. We're resources for you to tap into and to help you do those things.
Go ahead.
So there's actually two on the work plan. Maybe I shouldn't jump ahead of you, Mr. Chair.
No, I like this because
Okay.
Mr. Vauden isn't here
Yeah,
yet,
okay.
so.
There's two on the work plan that are just strictly Vicky and Paul, staff hours and open the museum summer weekends. So, it was just the two of you, so we need a third person to
Yeah.
jump in with you on that. So, Mr. Chair, I recommend that we find someone that would also join the two of yous on working out the staff and hours.
Staff hours
and
and-
opening the museum on summer
Okay.
weekends.
And just to add to that, Mr. Chairman, so when you look under discussion there, under the staff hours, it says, what will be the days in the week and the hours that the museum will be consistently open? That was where I was like, we can't decide, like, this is a proposal that's coming from the
Sure.
committee. That's where when I read that, I thought about it, and I thought, that's not for us to propose or determine, that's for the committee.
Yep.
And things, so just so you understand where I was coming from on this and things, so.
That was my problem. I put your initials down, so I just
all your
go ahead.
fault, Paul.
Yes.
So, Mr. Chair, I
Yes.
recommend that someone that has had experience with running the previous opening of the museum, someone from the Friends of the Museum, be added to those two items.
When do they do?
One's done,
Well,
March
March
20th
20th.
each of them.
Another 2 months.
Honestly, I don't.
Personally, never took it that you two were going to do the work. I saw that as, some of us have to come up with, okay, we want a North Huron staff person, this many days, this many hours. We want to apply for a student for this many hours, for this many months, whatever the grant is. How much is that gonna cost, right? So
Yep.
that was my interpretation of what would happen.
So just for the work plan, then we just
Yeah,
need a
yeah.
third name down there.
Yeah.
So somebody
So-
from the work,
And of course, I guess we kind of assumed, Paul, you were a worker. Do you know what I mean?
but now we know he's
That's
not.
You can hold the end of the tape,
Yeah, you
Committee,
can.
they're just determining.
as long as it's not the end that you're looking at the
Is
numbers.
there
Do
some-
we
you-
wanna do that?
Yeah.
let's
oh,
You and
yes.
I?
Okay.
Okay,
Excuse
put
me.
our names down,
So-
Bill and Dixie Lee.
Bill and Dixie
Yep.
Lee.
And I'll provide resources.
Thank
This is
you.
This is
Perfect.
Right on.
after the
Yeah.
museum
Okay, so
is
just change
open.
those names then.
Mhm.
Well,
Guys
yeah, but
gonna
even, no, but even
That takes
if
care of it then, right?
Okay.
The others
Yeah.
have other names. like
Yeah,
we
okay,
have
we have to
all right,
present
all right.
Every time, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's just those two.
Okay, so we have that just looked after. Bill and Dixie Lee will be in those two, and that's for the work plan on the 20th of March.
we'll hope.
Yes, yes.
Through you,
So-
Mr. Chairman, and those dates, again, those dates can be, that was one of the things that Doug did indicate at the meeting in his presentation, was that those dates are flexible and things, and that's why council just said, let us know if there's any changes, update us when there's changes in the timeline and things. It wasn't that they were holding you to it, but
Yeah.
if there's changes that need to occur. So if you feel you need, a month more or whatever time frame, we just have to adjust it and let them know.
Go ahead.
And we
Bill.
would communicate through you on that then?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And what will, I haven't thought it through yet, sorry, I was just looking at Amanda, I haven't thought it through yet, but I would think that it would probably just go as an informational item to council, just kind of something that, be aware that the work plan has been updated, for the committee has been updated, or dates have been updated. And we would just send it through council so that they could see and be aware of any kind of changes.
Go ahead, Doug.
Going forward, Vicki, would you be reporting, like, would it just almost be a standard item that you're gonna give an update from the North Huron Museum Committee? Because we meet monthly, so then once a month you'd update the council?
It's actually the chairman's responsibility to do that, and
Okay.
so, yeah,
So-
so he would do that, yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
And they're
This would be a
standard.
standard monthly or bi-weekly or whatever.
They meet twice a
period.
month, so it'd be just once a month you do.
Once a month,
Yeah.
they like to
Once
have
a
a little
month,
bit of
yearly.
update, and that's where I can say, okay, we need an extra
Month
month
on
on
this.
that.
Okay.
And we've gotten this and that done, and now we're moving on to that and that, so.
Perfect.
yeah. Okay, no, it's
Okay.
good.
Okay. Well, I'd like to move down to just 7.4, just allow a bit more time in case Brock is coming. So 7.4, legal ownership of the museum / committee.
Okay, so I mean, I can speak on that. The complete understanding from my wife and myself was that we were donating the property with the building to the Township of North Huron. And the agreement would be that the commitment from the Township of North Huron would be to continue to keep it open as a museum for 20 years. I said, once I'm 80, do what you want. Hopefully it will continue forward, but I don't wanna try to make the town commit to something infinite or indefinitely.
Yeah.
So, so that's our understanding as the donors, is that it was being given to the Township of to the Township of North Huron, for them to own and operate.
That's clarified now. There's just a
And
couple
I
of
would-
questions about that.
Okay, so I mean, and I would have difficulty if council wanted to do something different.
Yeah.
Okay,
Mhm.
because
Exactly.
I'd be concerned about how is the committee of seniors gonna raise money to keep the doors open on something like that?
Is,
Go
is
ahead,
this
Vern.
something then that's being reviewed in 20 years?
Oh, in 20 years, they can do what they want, okay? Seriously,
I'm sure there'll be
you
a
know,
set plan going
if
forward.
it is not, you know, if things have evolved in 20 years and it just doesn't make sense to have a physical museum anymore and everything's digitized and three-dimensional, you know, like Star Trek, then, you know, I'm not gonna stand in the way of that, you know. But if the town sees the value of it, in 20 years, it will continue, they can continue to maintain it, but the understanding of the agreement would be, hey, you're locked in for 20 years on this.
Okay. Okay, Anita, go ahead,
Well, I was
Dixie.
just gonna add a little context. Both the St. Mary's Museum and the Strathroy Caradoc are owned by the towns. And I believe Lambton is
Lambton's
owned by the county. I think so, yeah.
Right.
Huron County is owned by Huron
Yeah.
County,
Yeah.
so,
Right.
yeah.
Sure. Okay, thank you. So no other questions about
We
the,
should get a motion.
oh,
Everybody agrees to it.
So I've just given you mine, but just like committee speak as far as whether you think that's a stupid idea and whether it should go to a separate.
No.
I said right from day one,
No,
In
we've all been
20
on the-
years, I'll be 100, Doug, and I'm not gonna give a damn.
Yeah, but more so that the town is gonna own this museum,
Yes, yes.
Yes.
like
Okay,
they
now-
own the one across the
Okay,
road.
now I'll ask Amanda to read the motion out.
So this is a draft motion, so let me know if anyone wants something else. So that the North Huron Museum Committee hereby agree that the legal ownership of the former train station building will be the Township of North Huron, to be used as the North Huron Museum for the next 20 years.
Sounds all right to each one? Okay.
Mhm.
May I have a mover? David?
Yes.
Seconder? Bill? All in favor?
I have a question.
Okay.
Oh, before you, now,
Are we done? Is that with the motion? Or-
No, but once the motion was on the floor, I thought I had the
yes, you
opportunity
do.
to ask
We
a
apologize.
question then.
Questions?
It's somewhere in what I just read that Brock had about something to do with the title,
The name.
Recognition.
the name of the museum.
Mhm.
That motion makes it very clear what the title of the museum is going to be. Yes, it does.
Is that a concern, Vicky?
To you, Mr. Chairman, I'm not sure at this point. I wasn't sure where Brock was going with this information. I had talked to the chairman just before the meeting
Second
about
line,
this.
Verna. Second line under some thoughts about vision and mission. North Huron has virtually no recognition beyond Huron County and limited recognition even here. It's the shorter of those two pages. Page number 7,
Oh,
Yeah.
second line.
Yes.
Since this is a committee part of a committee recommendation in the whole package to council, could that name not just be considered for now a placeholder? Like, it's not gonna be carved in stone that that's the name if and when this finally goes ahead necessarily, is it?
It is if you pass that motion. 'Cause it-
No, I don't think so,
necessarily
because that
agree with you
motion
on
is
that.
not a council motion, this is part of a report, a recommendation that we will give to council. I know I'm sort of hair splitting, but
Mr. Chair, I would agree with Dixie Lee that it can be changed anytime.
That's what I
we,
thought.
like, it is called the North Huron Museum.
Mhm.
Let's not get into a debate about what the name's gonna be. We're gonna drag the committee down. It might not even reopen. So, like, I'd say just leave that aside, Verna, and if at some point in time somebody wants to change it to the Amazing Museum, then it becomes that.
Well, and it's also a reference, as you say, that's what, all the artifacts currently exist under that name. And so I think that's probably appropriate as a placeholder. Okay, I'm through.
Or was Verna after Verna's very?
Yeah.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I agree with Doug. Yeah, it's, at this point, it is already named and things, but if the committee during this process wanted to propose a new name for it based on what's being, you would bring forward a motion to
Okay.
do that.
Okay.
And Doug, you had a question?
If you're good with that, then the motion is passed, and then I just want it for the records that I did not vote. Okay,
Yep,
all
yep.
right,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
just if you wanna record that Doug
Okay,
Ivanhoe did
so-
not
Call a vote
Vote.
then?
on that. We did.
Did we?
Oh, you don't
Abstain.
have to have
I
it.
abstained, yes. Okay, that's the word. Thank you.
We need all in favor.
All in favor? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, this just determines who owns the museum, not the name. The name can be named at a later date.
Yeah, that's sort of.
We're good with that.
Exactly. So now, the 7.4, we're well, it's through now, so we're going to go back, slip up to 7.2. And I see Mr. Gordon's not here, so we have Lou.
Okay, now I'm feeling guilty about this because I did not write this. I talked to Brock on the phone about it, and he had gone ahead and then submitted this, and I think he sent it through to you, Vicky, as well. So I'm saying, I don't, like, there are a lot of things on there that I have a page of my own thinking about this, but I don't know as I am in a position to speak to his words and his thoughts.
You can defer it if you'd like to the next meeting.
Okay. So maybe defer this to the next meeting and, but Lou's not going to be here at the next meeting, so.
Finally.
Are there, maybe we could do it this way.
Could we maybe
Everybody
have
has a
this-
copy of these 2 pages
Mhm.
that you were given when we came. Would there be anything there that you, clarification, Verna brought up the name, and we've had that discussion. Is there anything there that you would like me to make note of and talk to Brock about, and we would clarify and then put both our names on another submission? Like, I don't like to speak for him, and these are his words, not mine.
Okay, Dixie, did you have your hand?
Well, coming back to the economic development and going back to those reports that were done a few years ago, right after the Nobel Prize was awarded, I know there was information in there on projected, economic benefits. And I would love to see some of that brought forward into the report, because I think council will find that very convincing, because it's economic, it's dollars and cents. And I just don't remember, that's why I'm being a bit fuzzy, but I know the information is there, right?
Well, and
So would that help with you
And I
and
think-
Brock and your
I think to
expanding this?
Dixie Lee, he made reference to me on the phone in conversation that because Vicky was also part of our, as a resource, he was saying this is covered, economic implications and values of are covered in various different other committees. And he was reluctant to go too far into that without the resources of staff to say that these things had already been covered. So I don't think he felt that we had an absolute finger on that. But if anybody else has something that they particularly feel is a valuable source for the economic development of this community relating to the museum, I'll certainly make note of that, and Brock and I will talk and maybe redo. And I think Doug is probably a guy that knows an awful lot about that aspect.
Mr. Chair, I like what you said, Dixie Lee, like if there's a report there about the economic that's there, like find it, blow the dust off it
Yeah.
and use that.
Yeah.
That's
There's
ready to go.
probably information in there that will be useful to include, maybe not the whole thing.
The added item to that, from my perspective, as I serve as the BIA chairman in Wingham, is that the idea of a visitor information center is really something that the BIA would love to see. So it's a museum, but also we're gonna gain a visitor information center that's open and accessible to the public and possibly even on the weekends, so people on tourism and that kind of stuff will be able to find out about the things to do in North Huron. So definitely that was, please include that as well on your report.
Bill,
Now-
go ahead.
Is that part of our work plan mandate to make suggestions on the Tourist Information Center as well?
I mean, it
you know-
is part of the economic, like, part of the discussion about the museum has been that. That's not a new introduction.
No, but I mean,
And so, just mentioning that only gives more support to our case for economic development. Like, we're making a case to council saying, this is a good
So-
thing, and here's why. This is what it does from an economic point of view as a museum, plus we gain a visitor information center with a person there that can answer questions for tourism and.
so if we say that, they may come back to us and say, can you add that into your plan? Is that what they might?
It is in the plan.
I mean, costs, if there were any, I don't know.
But it's going to be the same person staffing both
Well, just-
aspects, right?
It's
Like-
sort of, you're wearing a different,
Like the item on the work plan, it says economic development, identify positive economic impact of the museum. We don't put hard numbers to it, we just say,
Through you, Mr. Chairman, exactly what Doug's saying is you would say increase tourism in the town, and make some projections that if, you know, a number of people you would anticipate coming to the museum, if you're going to have a special event or something like that, then, you know, we'll hold 2 special events a year, and that, anticipated participation of, I don't know, 200 or 300 people or what, it's all projections and things, but and you know, while in town, maybe they're frequenting the businesses here, whether it's to get something to eat or that type of thing, I think
tour
is what.
buses would then
Yes.
also use the food facilities, stuff like that.
Mhm.
Mr. Chair, one more thing that just all of a sudden came to mind was, and now it's slipping out of my mind, hurry, economic development. Oh yes, that's what it was. The BIA did a community exchange with Walkerton. And what we did then was we had about 10 mystery shoppers from Wingham go to Walkerton and go through their town and try to find their way around all that kind of stuff. And then they did a report back to them so that their businesses could know what was good, bad, or ugly about their town. They did the same for us. They came to Wingham and they toured through Wingham and they did a report. One item that I remember from that report was a number of them went through the North Huron Museum, which was open at the time, and they said, wow, this is a hidden jewel. Okay, so you can refer to that, saying, you know, the BIA did a community exchange with Walkerton, and it was reported back to Wingham that the North Huron Museum was a hidden jewel.
Okay, so.
do we need that then in our, like, do we add that as a resource or material into our report, this kind of thing, or
The report, or through you, Mr. Chairman, the report or the proposal?
proposal, I mean?
The proposal, you're going to want to do that, yes, because
Okay.
you're making like a business case or
We're making a case, so.
Yeah, you're making
Mhm.
a case to move it.
So mentioning those things when council reads that goes, look at that, here's some positive things about
Okay.
Yep.
what's great about the museum.
Yep.
And the fact that we have people coming internationally to see the Alice Munro. You know, those kind of things, you don't need hard numbers, but you can. Okay.
I'm just curious, I'll get to you in a second. I'm just wondering, would Dixie, should she maybe be on with Lou and Brock, then we have one from each ward represented with that. Like you'll be able to each bring I'm just throwing that out there.
It's a lot of Blythe, you mean, and we'd like, I know what you mean, yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I'm just wondering, like just bring back a report, like you
Yeah,
said.
no,
yes.
no, that's
Through you,
okay.
Mr. Chairman, I'm not sure, I'm gonna throw this out there and there's some talk in the Blythe area that Blythe is considering starting their own museum.
Yes.
Okay, I don't know how many people are aware of that, but just food for thought when we're looking at this report and where things, will be going, you know, with you know, I don't know if that's where his thought was, I don't know, because I read it and I thought, what is he trying to say, I'm not really sure, right?
Yeah.
And things, because it was, instead of thinking of it as in North Huron, it was East Wawanosh and Blythe, and I'm like, is he alluding that maybe it should be a Wingham Museum? I don't know, but I did question that. And I asked Paul about it earlier today, the chairman about it earlier today, and like, what is this about? Because I wasn't really sure where it was going. And I was wondering, we have heard rumors and weren't sure if that was where it was headed, if that was the reason it was put in there and things, and, yeah.
Well, I would be willing to do that if I could just get my hands on that report that I was referring to. That would be very helpful. I know I kind of browsed through it at the time, but
Is this the
ones that were done,
you got
Morris
copies?
Turnberry and North Huron and Central Huron, I think, all put money in to hire consultants. And I remember the one was Blue Rhino, I think, and
And
I
you
went
had
to a
a
couple
music-
of meetings.
Blue Rhino, very unusual company.
Yeah.
name.
Yeah.
And I went to a couple of meetings.
I have copies of
with-
them all.
Okay,
The one I,
If we could have copies of that,
the one I
I have a
bought
copy at
because
home.
was the Alice Munro Museum
Especially that one.
feasibility study.
yeah. Well, I
That was in
don't,
2015.
is there anything, I don't know if there's anything in that particular one about economic, because I know they also they looked at several different aspects.
Yes,
And one was more or less economic and
Yes.
maybe job creation
yes.
in the county, resulting from the awarding of the Nobel Prize. So I'm thinking that might be a good place to get information.
Go ahead, Doug.
Oh, no, I'm just for Amanda then, so basically, under economic development, we replaced Vicky with Dixie Lee then on the work plan,
Sure.
and then the vision for the museum, we add Vicky, or do we add her in a
Wait,
minute
where?
too? Operation of the work plan, so if you look at the work plan under the operation plan, the first 2 points are vision for mission, the museum, and economic development, so.
So you want Vicky or
Well, Vicky's supposed to be a resource anyway, so
It's,
then,
there's a
Dixie.
section on optimizing economic benefit
Oh, lovely.
for Huron County.
Oh,
okay, there you
wonderful.
go. Okay, so
Okay,
just,
so
so if we're good there, then so
And-
that one.
I think so.
Well,
Okay.
it could be.
And staff be directed, get a motion, staff be directed to provide, to look into providing copies of the reports to the members of the committee.
Okay.
Thank you.
Just
Okay. Sorry.
No, there was just one other aspect to the tourist information. I could talk to Trina at the library because I know she tells me quite often a lot of people go in there for tourist information or for just general questions about the town. So she would have an idea of, maybe not raw numbers, but an idea that, you know, over the course of the summer we get a lot of inquiries, that kind of thing. And I wouldn't be surprised if, you know, out at the complex, if they get a lot, you know, a number of inquiries as well for people who are at hockey tournaments or people who are driving by. So that's another place to maybe gather, if we want to add to the tourist information side of it.
Is your hand up or not? I'm not sure. Yes, I'm sorry.
I want
It's
other
probably there
people
for
to
half
have
an hour. I'm
their
sorry.
say here, but To what extent does the current museum collection represent the history of East Wawanosh and Blythe? That really hit me in the middle of the head, because we made every effort to include them all and to build on them all through pictures and signs and contacts and so on. So there's something going on there, Vicki, and I'm interested in what you have just said. The other thing that I never think people spend enough time thinking about when they think about a museum, business does not always mean money in a business to me. What about if I want to move to this area and I want to bring my kids, and my kids can skate but they're not big hockey stars? I would want to know if they've got some cultural aspects to the growth of this area. And I never see that focused on enough. And I think I can say, although we did it in a very limited way, by bringing in our school kids 2 or 3 times a year and running programs for them and saying, this belongs to you, and here are the stories that you need to know about this building and why it is here and why it's on Josephine Street. And I think sometimes we lose that aspect when we just focus on business. It's all one and the same. It's why people want to come and visit, why people want to come and stay. And I mean, you know, I read through this and Brock was raising some things I hadn't really focused on, but I hadn't really seen that. And my orange sheet, which is my own, off my own desk after I read this, it gets covered with things that you could offer to kids and families and teachers and campers and in the summer, all of that kind of stuff. So I don't think we want to lose that either. Well, I'm sure Brock wasn't, but he's not here to say, well, that's what I really meant by that. You know what I'm saying?
Go ahead.
And just on the economic, I'm just giving you more ammo here, Dixie Lee, is that, and Lou, is that, you know, I see the demographics, and we have a huge baby boomer coming through, you know, you know, they're retiring, they got time, they're looking for things to do, day trips are great. We're in Southwest Ontario, we're in the highest populated part of Canada, and so, you know, there's going to be more people just looking to, you know, day trips and running around, and the Wingham Museum will be part of that
That's right.
area that they can come. And with Alice Munro, you know, like, there's just a lot that I think is only going to grow with the demographics of more and more people.
And I'm not going to let you lose George Reed.
Okay, good. Yeah, that's it. You got to remind me of George Reed.
You know, because I think because I'm an outsider here, but I heard over and over and over again in my first years of being up here a little more often, oh, you know, Blythe makes everything work and we don't make anything work. Well, we better make something work, because I can't imagine nicer public buildings than this town has. Some of them empty. And that stresses my soul.
Thanks, Lou. Okay, go ahead, Bernard. You had your hand up first.
I think, and there's probably 100 of them or more around, but there are 5 of these books that are all different topics. And I think they should be taken back out again, because nothing really happened other than the one for the Alice Munro Festival is the one that we grabbed a hold of, and we went to work on all the things that they said needed to be done to improve our festival. Everything else more or less just got set aside, and nobody paid any attention to the rest of the books. And there's a lot in them. I've read them all, In fact, I'm a highlighter. I have to highlight what I think is important so I don't have to look so hard the next time to find it. But I do. I have a whole set because I was on the committee. But I think it would be a benefit if people
we
got
all
to
had.
read them.
Okay. You had a question?
Boy, it's a load. The four statements here are fairly blunt by Brock, right? Absolutely true. Wingham, Blythe, and East Wabanach are better known than North Huron. Well, how long has North Huron been around? And what was its purpose? Well, its purpose was political as opposed to building a town. See, so that makes it a bit hard. That one struck me.
That's because he lives in Blythe.
Okay.
He knows Blythe better, and he has the history of Blythe.
Yes. To what extent does a museum collection represent the history of East Wabanach and Blythe? Probably not too much. We
Not
gave
to
it our
his extent.
best effort when we became, when we changed when we're the Friends of the Wingham Museum, it became the Friends of the North Huron Museum. We began to collect what we had in our own collection, which was minimal, things regarding East Wabanach and Blythe, and we reached out to Brock for things that he would loan us or whatever. And he challenged us. He said, you have to prove to me that this is going to be a holistic museum, right? A North Huron museum. And about a year later, he came to me and he said, you did. So he started giving us reprints and so on. The other thing that I have to mention is that as Friends of the Museum, and even when we had Jody Jerome, we were constantly getting phone calls, or the staff were, that I have a wedding dress from my 1930s, and it'd be a lady from Wingham. Or I have my father's old lawyer desk, and he's got all kinds of stuff in it. Well, we didn't get that from East Wabanach and Blythe, because of course we haven't promoted it that way. But I don't know if we should look at that in part of our mandate for a museum would be make a presentation in East Wabanach and say, hi, do you know you've got a museum that you could donate? If you've got family pictures. We never did that, of course, but I mean, we never sold it to the people of Blythe and to the people of East Wabanach. And that's something maybe we should consider when we write up our museum proposal, the governance and that under.
Well, Bill, I went to,
You did, didn't you?
yes,
I've
I
s-
was Miss Speaker in
Yeah,
East
yeah,
Wabanach.
that's right. I apologize. You're right.
No, I'm
No,
not wanting any apology.
I forgot that.
But, I mean, it's a rural, it's essentially rural.
Yes.
And that's why, the other two, you've got a focused population right there. You can go down the street and say, oh yeah, they would, da-da. Well, we're a little different. But I did wonder about that question that Brock has brought up. What would be gained by going out, promoting, da-da,
Yeah.
whatever we do? I don't think we thought about that too much.
No.
Doug?
Regarding the name North Huron, that just takes time. It takes years. It
And
takes
how
a
long has North
decade
Huron been
because
around?
when I Google Maps,
20 years.
okay, take Google Maps.
30 years.
If I try to put in my address as 229 Arthur Street, Wingham, Ontario, it doesn't get me there. I have to put in 229 Arthur Street, North Huron,
Yeah.
and bam, it gets me the right spot. So it's just a time thing. It's going to take time.
Well, that's the
and-
whole idea.
so
It
I don't know
started
what
as
else-
a Wingham Museum.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it became
And
North Huron.
when they amalgamated, then it changed the title. And that's, you
But-
can understand that there's got to be more stuff there from Wingham because that's where it started from. But
And-
eventually you gather the rest.
It just takes time because,
Sure does.
for instance, I mean, I've been on the Wingham Town Hall Theater Committee, okay? And we have tried to been losing the Wingham Heritage Theater name ever since we started. We said, that's history, we just want to call it, everybody keeps on calling it the Wingham Heritage Museum. No,
Theater.
Theater, pardon me, yes,
Yes.
excuse me. So, So, you know, it just takes time.
That's
But
right.
if efforts continue and we set our mandate that we're representing the 3 communities or the 3 areas, the wards of our township, then over time, it can get there. Now, if Blythe decides they want to do their own thing, that's another deal. But at this point in time, it's just,
I think it's Brock himself is wanting a place for all of his
His artifacts.
artifacts.
He has it, and he has a governing board now for it.
Yes.
Dixie,
But in terms of the name, I mean, that's something you just go at in promoting and everything on a new website and everything, North Huron, the rural beauty and trails in, East Wawanach, and this in Wingham, and this here, and you just tie it all together. So I don't think I don't consider that a big issue,
The
personally.
number
I don't
of-
think it's number 1. I think we have a lot more,
Yeah.
the business about name recognition.
okay,
It's,
so are we,
I don't know.
Well, your economic
I think there's
development,
consensus in the room.
if you're gonna have economic development, you have to promote way beyond your borders.
Oh, yeah.
That's what encourages people to come to your town. And I think we can do that once we have a museum that's set up and ready. Like, as we keep saying, we've got a Nobel Prize winner. How many other towns have one?
okay,
In Canada.
I'll ask Amanda to read our,
So I have 2 motions here that I kind of gathered out of the discussion. So the first one is that the North Huron Museum Committee hereby provide direction to staff to bring back reports regarding economic benefits previously conducted.
mover, oh, okay.
Yes, because this is based much on just Blythe. And I think it's gotta be a much broader statement than what's here.
Okay, yeah.
I will make a
Okay.
motion then.
Sure.
Accept, you'll,
And
I'll
somebody,
Second.
second.
Dixie, second? All in favor?
or discussion,
Oh, sorry, discussion? I'm sorry.
I think so, but I wanted to make sure.
All in favor? Now the hands up. Super.
And I also have this one, if all discussion is over, that the North Huron Museum Committee hereby defer item 7.2 to the February 20th, 2020 committee meeting.
Mover, second?
I'll say.
discussion.
Is that, is,
Dis-
yes,
Oh,
discussion?
Sorry,
Yes.
Should we roll into that Vicky is being replaced by Dixie Lee? Or is that already just noted as part of the minutes? then,
It's
Amanda?
part of the minutes.
Okay, that's fine, yeah, so
Is that fine?
that answers my
Just the
question.
minutes?
Okay. Now, is that all right with Lou? Because I see Lou's name.
She's still on it.
Yeah, but she's not here on February 20th.
Oh,
She is,
doesn't mean she has to come off though.
okay.
Well, my goodness, I don't have to be at everything
No,
that my name is attached to.
Okay.
keep it, yeah.
Okay.
So,
All in favor?
That'd be fine.
Okay, now. 7.3, vision for the museum. We again have Brock's name and Lou, so.
so discussion for Evan.
So discussion or defer?
I think we can talk
I
about
think
it.
we have essentially been talking about this.
Well,
Yes.
we haven't talked about, like, specifically, right? He said at the very last of his report, to be recognized, the vision statement, to be recognized as a vibrant community museum respected for our role in preserving, interpreting, and celebrating our artifact stories and our culture and our cultural heritage. So,
I mean, that's a big umbrella.
but it's pretty nice statement.
It's good. No, it's good, and I mean,
Mhm.
you might as well start, that's where you have to start anyway.
Yeah.
And then you have to do this.
Part of that, I
So-
think, will show up in our
Yeah.
strategic plan too, and.
I mean, wanting to be vibrant, a community museum, with the community being North Huron, right? respected for our role in preserving, interpreting, celebrating artifacts, stories, and our cultural heritage. I think it's gorgeous.
You know,
You probably
I'd
lifted,
imagine
maybe
that-
lifted it from another museum, but it's
Yeah,
it's good.
Well, it's exactly the same as the Stratford Perth.
Oh, yeah.
Same wording, yeah.
Same wording.
Yeah,
Why
I'm sure that
reinvent
it's-
the wheel?
I mean,
you know
yeah, why
what
would
I
you
mean?
reinvent
It's
the wheel?
constant, yeah.
Is
So-
that okay?
I had
Oh,
written
yeah.
down,
They copied it from somebody else.
Maybe, I just
no,
wanna
I
make sure
think
we're.
so.
Don't reinvent the wheel.
I think it's a beautiful vision statement.
Could we just tweak it just a little bit, just so it's
Sure.
not word for word? Just look at it for a second. And Lou, you had something there?
I was just going to say, when I read that, I wrote down myself, and I mean, we're not going to change that because this is much better, but I wrote down, this is a great statement for stirring the blood, but it has to be broken down into essential elements, which will be a constant guide for every step we have to take. But I mean, you got to start with a big, wide open
Yes, you do.
comment.
And I mean, I've done these vision missions
Yeah,
things, right? So
we
the
all
vision
have.
is always the big broad one.
Oh, yeah.
It's not defined specifically.
No,
It's like,
no.
this is the vision of. this is-
You're in
so-
trouble if you put down too much specific at the beginning,
Yeah,
because then you
and
gotta
then, and
meet
then you
it.
go to mission, which is more
Yeah, yeah.
specific, so,
And then people never look at it.
No,
well, we
well-
go back to it from time to time, but if you want to tweak it, we could drop, for our vital role. So you could say, to be recognized as a vibrant community museum, respected, for preserving, interpreting, blah, 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 right? And so just take out our vital role in, if you wanted to change it slightly.
Is that enough? Is that enough, do you think?
I think that,
We
we
just a little
don't
more
necessarily need the
just-
respected
we-
for our vital role.
Yeah, so, well, respected for preserving, interpreting,
Yeah,
or
Yeah, preserving, interpreting, and celebrating our
Just- you just-
Unless you want to change it to dedicated to preserving, interpreting,
Oh, I
and
like that even,
celebrating.
that-
oh, I like
Dedicated.
that.
I like
Ooh,
dedicated.
yeah.
Dixley's really good with words.
Dedicated,
To
to
preserving.
preserving. interpreting, celebrating artifacts. Oh, that's gorgeous. I think the other ones are gonna start copying this one.
They won't know about it for a
would you
while.
like to be on each of these?
No, stop.
so what's the wording now?
Go ahead, Dixie Lee, you got it.
After museum, put dedicated to.
Okay, so it,
Take out respected for a vital role in, and replace it with dedicated to those goals. As a suggestion.
Dedicated
and-
to?
That's it.
My wife's always like, don't repeat yourself. So where it says, and celebrating our artifacts, stories, and our, you don't need that again. You don't need a second R there. Celebrating our artifacts, stories, and cultural heritage. So drop the duplication of the hours. So drop the, in front of cultural, just get rid of that
Could
hour.
Take out them both.
Well,
To be-
celebrating our, it's our artifacts.
Except, Doug, I'm just thinking, I think if we're looking ahead to the future here, to the new view of what museums are, I don't think we're going to be quite so self-centered as, you know, I think anymore we would be looking to feature things that would bring people to that museum that don't care about the Currys and the wherever they lived and so on. So I'm saying that's the only part that,
But when you think, Betty Lou, of the mandate of the museum, and like Huron County said, hey, if it's outside of Huron County, we don't want it. And we as well, if it's like outside of, I mean, we can show a show of some other, bring in
Yeah.
some stuff, but as far as what we preserve and
no,
And
I understand, that's fine.
we're not
I'm
preserving
just having a discussion.
stuff from,
No,
you know,
that's fine.
Alberta or whatever.
Well,
We're not preserving stuff.
I've
from
already
Alberta.
got a show that I want to have put in there, and it has nothing to do with North Europe.
Well,
Well, that's fine, that's how you attract
Yeah.
people, that's how you
That's
get
what I
people
mean,
back.
that's what I
Okay.
mean.
I'll have, Vicky just said something here.
Just another way of saying things is just celebrating the cultural heritage of North Huron communities. you could do something like that if you didn't wanna say our, if you want to say the cultural heritage of North Huron communities or something, I don't know.
I like our.
Yeah.
I don't, it doesn't matter to
It's
me.
because people gotta have ownership of this museum. And,
Yes,
and
exactly.
you keep it to
Mhm.
everybody else, then,
Well,
I don't,
and
like Lou, I don't think it steps in the way of us bringing in a display, but,
No,
like,
no.
I don't.
I'm just trying to throw bigger
You're being
fish in the
facetious
pond
there.
for a moment.
So it's dedicated to our vital role?
No,
No,
No, to be recognized as a, did we keep, no,
Dedicated to
dedicated to
preserving.
preserving,
we take out
interpreting.
respected for our
Okay,
Yeah.
vital role.
so you took out the vital role.
Yes.
Where it,
Yeah.
it's gone.
And respected even, so. Have you got that down,
Dedicated-
Amanda? Are you getting it?
Dedicated to preserving, interpreting, and celebrating our artifacts, stories, and cultural heritage.
I like
Bang,
that.
Right.
there it is, right there.
Nicely done.
I'm just gonna let
So as long
Amanda
as
just,
you've got it.
Yeah.
I want Amanda to read what she has
Yes,
written
yes.
down here, okay?
Okay, so that the North Huron Museum Committee hereby, oh, sorry, that's the motion. Do we wanna
Yep.
pass it at this meeting? Or defer it for the next one?
Looks good.
Do we
Like,
what?
we're good
Yeah,
here.
let's do it.
Okay,
let's
so
do
I'll
it.
read it
Okay.
out. That the North Huron Museum Committee hereby agree that the vision statement for the North Huron Museum will be to be recognized as a vibrant community museum dedicated to preserving, interpreting, and celebrating our artifacts, stories, and celebrating our artifacts.
No.
And cultural heritage.
Just celebrating our artifacts, stories, and cultural heritage. Boom.
Celebrating our artifacts, stories.
Celebrating our artifacts, stories, and cultural heritage.
Yep, perfect.
Boom.
Okay,
No, I love it because
Oh,
We've made it a little shorter as
yes,
well.
Yeah.
you can't discuss until we move. Sorry.
Yeah.
Paul.
do you have a mover,
I'll so
Bernadette?
move.
Dixie, second.
Dixie?
Sure.
Second. Dixie, second.
I
Discussion.
Discussion?
I really think this is forward thinking because from what I've seen being a volunteer at the Huron County Museum, do you know what they're doing now? They're telling the story of the new Syrian refugees. Their stories. They featured a wedding dress, a Syrian wedding dress, and the lady who loaned it for the 1 month it was up for display, her photograph. Do you know what I mean? We are celebrating currently, not historically. They do that too. There's an LGBT whatever display in there too. 3 people telling their stories. And they have an artifact. They each had one personal item from their past that went with it. This is mind-blowing. This is not the way museums were thought of 10 years ago.
Mhm, that's
You
what
know,
I'm saying.
and the idea that they've got 23 stoves, and only 2 of them are Huron County, and only 1 of them has a story. So guess what? We don't need any except the one with the story. Like, so in other words, it's rethinking your collection, your vision, your everything.
And
So
what
it's
you
very
said
exciting.
fits within this.
Yeah, and that's
Said
why
yes.
I was going to say, yeah, that really hits it
Oh, yes.
hard.
All right.
A new way to go.
But we leave in community there?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yes,
Mm-hmm.
yes. I think we still try to stretch to East Wawanosh and
Oh, no, that's the
Question?
same community.
oh, okay.
But
Call the
I'm
question for the vote.
thinking
Oh,
beyond,
okay, could we have a
as you're
vote?
saying, Bill.
Yeah, but we were-
Oh, so, okay, a vote, all in favor?
Folks, that was huge. Okay,
Hey,
I have seen mission statements drag out for months.
yes.
Oh,
Oh,
and
this, I love it. It's
Oh.
really
like that was
it's
worth
really
the whole
cutting
meeting getting
edge.
that done right there. I was afraid it was gonna table it and go on to another meeting. We'd sit here and open the can again. Oh.
But now we have to teach the public that it's not the artifacts that's important. It's the celebration of that story of how it got here and the people that brought it and
Yeah,
Okay.
all ready.
Okay, we'll go on to number 8, correspondence, none. Number 9, next steps. Okay, our next steps are accreditation requirements, that's Joan and Bill. Volunteer program and involvement, Joan and Dixie Lee. Costing of building and maintenance utilities, Doug. Ms. Gopher. Association membership fees, Bill and Joan. And administration fees and income, Bill and Joan. So
This could be a
Joan and
little-
Bill had better be here next meeting. And then we're also gonna be deferring,
Museum economic.
Economic.
yeah, that's gonna be brought up, okay?
What about, the barn dance museum?
Oh,
I'm sorry, I missed that question.
That's for March 20th.
What about the barn dance museum? Like,
It's the 20th,
that's
March
going to have
20th.
an impact on whether we have or we don't.
But that's for the March, did you see it on the plan? It's on there,
It's on there
Okay,
March 20th.
March.
Yeah,
March 20th.
yeah.
So we'll be,
Dave's working on that.
I can kind of tell you where we're heading. We're going to give back what we have on loan to the people that have loaned it to us. And I think we'll be offering the cabinets that we have in the Barn Dance Museum to the North Huron Museum if they wish them. And the artifacts that we have been gifted will be likely offering to North Huron, or our letters patent say they're to go to a lake institution, so that either North Huron, or if they don't want them, maybe Huron County. But I think we're heading towards disbanding the Barn Dance Museum, and right now they're talking to the Blythe Lions Club about running the camp out, which was the fundraiser for the Barn Dance Museum. And if we disband the museum, we don't need a fundraiser anymore. Like, they may do concerts for the Lions Club if they decide to go ahead.
Right. Okay, so that's almost looked after by the sounds of it then.
But we're in better shape than I thought we were. We have a big binder about so thick with a list of the artifacts. I think it was done something like 2004, and it says whether they're gifted or on loan for most of them. And there is a big record collection that I'm sure the Rustworms donated to us, and a lot of the records are by people that appeared on the original Barn Dance, and that'll likely be offered to North Huron too. But
Okay, so, oh, I'm sorry.
well, it's okay. Just a question for Dave then. The ones that, the artifacts that are getting returned, is there any record of who those people are in case down the road the museum is looking to see if those people will donate them back once the museum's?
we get them to write down that they've, like who got the artifacts. Like it's
The stuff that got returned, I'm saying.
yeah, who got the things.
Okay,
like,
so you've got record of those contacts.
Yeah, like.
Okay. Becky?
Do you have any idea how much is going back and how much is staying?
Not
Not
really
yet?
at the present time.
Okay. Just thinking about that, you know, how much room that's going to
Yes.
need and things, because I think going into this, we were thinking everything downstairs, we were gonna try to accommodate and things, but, and trying to figure out, you know, if the shed was big enough, and we knew it was big enough, but how much room it was going to need, and, you know, all those different things come into play when thinking about
I'm still
that.
guessing it is big enough.
Yeah.
I'm still guessing that
Yeah.
it's big enough.
Okay. So those are our next steps, and then also, as you said, we deferred 7.2. Yes, okay. Does everyone feel they can do it in that time frame?
Well, we've got, if you turn the page over, we've got a lot.
Do your best, no,
We may have to defer some of these February items
Sure.
to
I was saying, there's
Later,
quite a load
but-
on the one.
Yeah.
And it makes for a very long meeting too. There were so many on there, so we may just do that for necessity.
Yeah, sure.
Mhm.
And that's okay, right, Vicky? It just is a matter of the way it is. It's,
Through you, Mr. Chairman, are there some things on there that you would know at this point that you would like to postpone to March? Or do you want to pick and choose what you're able to complete? Doug. Doug's pushing, but
Well, you give it your best shot and you come
Yeah,
here,
let's-
and then, you know,
Mhm.
don't
Yeah.
defer until you
Try.
find out
We'll
you
see.
have to defer it.
yeah, I was just looking at this, it's just, Bill, you've got your name by what, 3 things?
So-
And Joan does as well, and Joan's not even here.
She's got four.
Well,
and
Joan's got 4.
See,
Yeah,
she,
okay.
once she's back, she's babysitting big time. I think we'll give it a shot. I know I've been ill for the whole month,
Okay.
from Christmas right through.
What are we doing then about, we got Doug and Paul on cost of building and grounds maintenance and utilities.
Well, that's
That's
looked
fine.
after,
I take the lead on it, he
Yeah.
supports me.
Oh,
I'm-
okay.
okay? And sorry, Bill, I think you were saying something, no?
No, I'm
Okay.
good.
Okay, scheduling for our next meeting will be held on February 20th, 2020 at 2 p.m. here in the council chambers. That same time at 2 p.m. It works for everyone except for Lou. Okay. And that the North Huron Museum Committee agree that there being no further business before the committee, the meeting be hereby adjourned at 3:15.
12.
3:12. 3:12.
Anybody move?
Somebody really-
Dave, seconder? All in favor?
Just put
The
your hand.
motion had to get passed, there you go.
Yeah.
Awesome, good meeting, folks. Very good. And that vision statement was huge.
Oversight.
Glad.
Right.